to the Christmas edition of the Jump Show, previewing all the festive action, including this Saturday at Ascot, alongside, obviously, on Boxing Day and Stephen's Day at Kempton, Aintree, and everywhere in between over the festive months. Tom Bull, again, has taken the Christmas week off. He's decided he's done his hard yards for racing TV, and he's left me in the hot seat with Jake and Dan as usual. Dan, looking incredibly festive in your Santa hat. Don't know where you're going with this, but I'm hoping that winners are coming.
Something's coming. I imagine it's probably not going to be that. However, I think if you dress for success, sometimes it follows. So that's what I'm going with. We're just hoping here. Merry Christmas to one and all.
Yeah, if you believe the lie enough, sometimes it will come true. Jake, what about yourself? Looking forward to the next few weeks?
Yeah, I've got the racing TV jumper on, so I'm representing the father company. But yes, looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah, well, you're nothing if not a man of principles and integrity, Jake, having the racing TV jumper on. If you do enjoy this video, do, of course, hit that like button, subscribe to the lads' channel. If it's the only thing you can do for me this Christmas, it's subscribe to the guys' channel. And I think the last time I was on, I set a like goal of 100 likes, and I think it got 175. So I'm taking full credit for that. This time around, as it's a Christmas special, we're going to go for 150 likes, and I'm hoping that you guys can do the job. It only takes a second. Down below, like and subscribe, and it will be well worth your while going forward in the next few months for Cheltenham. Certainly a lot more knowledgeable than the crap that me and Josh come up with every week. First thing you guys do on your usual weekly is the notable performance of the week, trying to get an eye catcher or potentially a horse that we may keep on side for the rest of the season. Jake, I'm going to come to you first. Plenty of decent racing without maybe any world beaters going around in the last week. Who did you take out of it?
Yeah, I went to Ferry House actually last weekend for the 3-year-old maiden hurdle. And the horse that won that was Pacini. I thought he was very good. He obviously made all the running that day. It was a decent enough field. He was reopposing with Green Sky. But I just thought, yeah, it was a very polished performance. And I think, you know, kind of what it really brings it back to is that Mighty Bandit form is just looking out of this world right now, isn't it? Harsh has gone on and bolted up since. Obviously, Pacini is now bolted up since. They were the 3rd and 4th. And that Lark in the Morning, obviously, is hopefully going to run over Christmas, that Dan put up as one of these horses a couple of weeks ago as well. Definitely one on the Boodles list, as is Pacini, as is Harsh. Lots to get excited about in the juvenile ranks at the minute. But yeah, Mighty Bandit's form is looking very good.
Yeah, and the vibe seems to be that Mighty Bandit has come forward a ton for that run, which is quite frightening, really, when you think of how that form is looking. Dan, looking at Cheltenham on Saturday, there was a certain horse that's obviously very close in affiliation to yourself. I think you're the Pied Piper of the Broadway Boy fan club. I'm not going to say anything about Melina Girl, because if I speak, I'm in big trouble. So I'm going to let you take your moment of glory and rub it in.
It was a nervy few moments. What made it even nervy was the fact he somehow went off 11-8. I guarantee you it was not my money.
You're hard earned. You were doing a Gary Moore Christmas gamble job on this horse.
Except, yeah, it was. I've never seen the like. Every time the ticker came along the bottom of the screen, he contracted another half a point. And how he ended up going off 11-8, I don't know. And he gave me a few frights down the back the second time when he decided, I'm not a fan of jumping fences anymore. But my God, how tough is this horse? Like, honestly, how game is he to get back to the front, then kick on and kick again and just bat 3 under through 5 out the way like he wasn't even there. He's now rated the same as Stay Away Fate. The dream lives on for a few more weeks until he runs into L'Empresse at Lingfield. Please don't go that route.
That is quite an outrageous piece of race planning if they go down that route.
Oh, I pray he goes to Warwick instead and just has an easier task there. If he takes on Protectorat and L'Empresse, and he's going to be under a penalty, so he's going to be giving L'Empresse weight. I've never seen the like.
This slightly reminds me of a week or two ago where I was begging with Paul Gilligan to not run Buddy Wood in the Hatton's Grace. It's just one of those where you're just going, it's surely not the play. But yet sometimes they just decide to do it.
And he ran. Actually, he's still running, isn't he?
He is still running. He needs to stop soon if he's going to run at Leopardstown on the 28th.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, why aren't we race planners? We'd have so many winners between us. Maybe one day. Or maybe Willie Twiston Davis knows better than me. Maybe.
Perhaps so. Perhaps so. I can't really see how that would be the case, but perhaps so. Was there anything else throughout the weekend that caught your eye?
Yeah, a couple of a lower level I'll throw In This World in the 2 mile handicap won by Go Dante. Obviously, he took your eye out, went off 50-1, crept into it. There was a time where this horse was thought the world of as a juvenile hurdler. Obviously, picked up an injury. I think they were going to keep him as an entire because they thought that much of him. They thought they could breed with him, but hasn't gone well. Still off a mark 120, seems to be going the right way again. Finally, he will win a handicap down the line. And then one for a bit of a project is Jacamar, who we know a fair bit more about. Made his seasonal reappearance on soft ground the other week. Out the back as expected. He normally takes 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 runs to actually come good. Needs to go right-handed, 2.5 miles good ground. Look out for him in late February, early March when he gets his conditions.
Very good. I'll throw one in the mix, one that I was impressed with how he travelled through the races in the Bartlett trial, actually, and a horse called Kerry Hill for Ruth Jefferson. I think this is actually quite a nice long-term prospect. Wasn't given a hard time by Adam Wedge, which I'll say no more about. But he actually travelled into the race like a good horse would. Coming to 2 out, you thought he might actually go on and win the race. Got a bit tired. Not sure whether he quite stayed 3 miles this early stage of his career. He'd only won a small enough runner race at Kelso the time before that. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if this horse maybe wins a big novice hurdle up north at some stage this season and might be a nice staying chaser down the line. So Kerry Hill for Ruth Jefferson, one to take forward for myself. Moving on to the previews stuff, which I'm sure everyone is watching this for. And we're going to have a bit of a deep dive onto Saturday's card at Ascot, which sometimes doesn't quite get the love it deserves because it's just before Christmas and everyone's thinking of Kempton. The Long Walk Hurdle is the feature, the Grade 1 3-mile race. West Balboa, best price 10 to 3. Crambo 7 to 2. Johnny Burke takes the ride for the first time. And then the old stagers, Champ, Paisley Park, Dashel, Drasher, the next 3 in the betting. Jake, I'll come to you first. Obviously, West Balboa and Crambo are at the top of the market as they're the 2 new people on the scene, I suppose. We've seen the likes of Champ, Paisley Park, Dashel, Drasher running these races seemingly for eternity. Do you think one of them has the scope to go and win this race?
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare race, isn't it, when you're looking at it from a betting perspective. I think West Balboa obviously getting the mare's allowance. She's got her, strong claims there. Really, that £7 is invaluable. She was good when she beat Buren Up a Storm at Aintree. She obviously was good when she won the 3-mile handicap at Aintree at the back end of last season as well. So look, she's more than earned her place in this field, and she's very interesting. Crambo, I'm not sure that I've got a real handle on him yet. Obviously, he ran well at Haydock, but finishing an eye-catching 3rd, is that good enough to then bounce on and win a Grade 2? And obviously, the jockey change will help that, you'd imagine. So yeah, he's another interesting horse. But I did think that at a massive price, the one that Dan made a case for, that he broke his heart, Red Risk, would have a bit of a squeak here. I can see he's actually been backed since I was looking at my notes earlier. But yeah, look, him and Blue King Daru for Nichols. Obviously, Cobden's gone for Blue King Daru. I think Blue King Daru's got a chance, but when I watched back his race over 2.5, I felt like the horse in second was kind of fading and he just stayed on at the same kind of pace. I don't think he was really crying out for a step up to 3 miles, whereas Red Risk obviously travelled all over Botox has, and it was just annoying he couldn't get past. That was on soft ground. The ground's going to be a lot quicker this weekend. I think that could, give him a bit of an H-grade squeak. But it's such a windy field, literally, any of those 11-year-olds, as you say, could pop up on the day if they're on a going day and win it, couldn't they? So it's an interesting race, but yeah, whether the form is going to be good enough for a stayers, we'll see.
No, it doesn't look likely at the moment, unless one of these probably at the top 2 show something that we haven't seen before, Dan. There's a few horses in here that you've got affiliations to, the likes of Crambo, who I know you were quite keen on before Haydock, and of course, as Jake has painfully reminded you, Red Risk at Wetherby. I remember you saying after Red Risk got beat at Wetherby, you had to take yourself out for a walk around the block. It was that bad.
It had been the end of a long day of a lot of near misses and poor performances, and then I can almost take getting beaten, but what I can't take is Bully texting the group chat saying, "Get in." When I've plucked this thing out of thin air, he was the outside. No one liked Red Risk. And here's Bully with his first winner of the month, giving it the big uns at Bodox has just climbed over the line in tainted fashion. So That not that I'm bitter at all,
No,
but
no, not at all.
he didn't deserve it. Granbo was slightly different because he was never well positioned that day. I just, you can't get that far behind at Haydock. But to a certain extent, he had time to pick up when required and didn't, which would concern me in a Grade 1 race. Does he just lack that tactical speed at this level? I think that would be a concern. If I was to have a bet in the race, it would be West Balboa. I echo a lot what Jake said. She's the progressive mare in here. A big fan of her. I do think she is able to compete at this level. Still relatively unexposed, but fair play to all 10 running here. It's actually made it somewhat interesting. This had the danger of cutting up into 4 or 5 runners quite easily, but a race I probably won't be having a big bet in, but if I was, it would be West Balboa.
And just a quick one on Crambo. Obviously, Johnny Burke is taking the ride. I thought it was a tad harsh on Conor Brace in terms of, like, I know it probably wasn't his best ride he's ever given the horse at Haydock, but that being said, he's given the horse plenty of good rides in the interim before then, and he's kind of just been jocked off pretty swiftly. And as much as Johnny Burks is an excellent rider, it's not like they've gone for Harry Cobden or somebody. Like, it's, I don't know, I thought it was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I mean, he rode him with the confidence of, like, he was on Pegasus the time before that. Like, I've never seen the like. He was unbelievably confident. And I think that got in his head slightly going into Haydock. I think he maybe just thought he had so much in hand he could almost get that far back. But it's one of those where I mean, they're always going to take a bit of flack for that decision. And then others are going to say rightly so because he didn't give him a good ride last time out. But yeah, it's one of those where Johnny Burke's a more than admirable replacement, but you got to feel slightly for him. One error and you jocked off. It's not exactly the best message to be sending your jockeys coming through.
No, a bit harsh, as I say, but look, if he goes and wins, it will all be justified. I must say, I actually couldn't look past Paisley Park in this race. I know that's an incredibly strange thing to say, but I don't think these horses coming through are actually of any better standard than the proven form. I don't see what West Balboa has done that would indicate that she's going to hack up. Like some people are saying, I can understand why she could run well, but look, the proven form in the book is the proven form in the book, and I'll take a chance on that. In the Silver Cup, a few good horses in this. Blackjack Magic won the Badger Bears. He's 4-1. Yeah, man, 11-2. Victorino won over course and distance at 6s. Hascore Claremont won a few times on the bounce. Jeepmaker won last time. Dan, an open race, a tough little race as well. Who did you land on?
Yeah, very tough this one. I came down on Gitmaker, mainly because I saw that Super Survivor, who he beat, is about 5-6-1 for a Welsh national, yet Gitmaker's a bigger price despite beating him and in a worse race, which to me didn't really make much sense. Like, he's a really progressive horse. His jumping has continued to improve, beat Super Survivor. I was shade comfortably, I thought, last time out. And the mare who finished third actually then ran really well in the mare's handicap at Cheltenham the other day. So that looks solid form. Uncomplicated sort, will be ridden handy, only up £5. And while this is a step up in grade, they've always been talking about him for races like this and like the likes of the Midlands National. So it's been on their radar. They know he's a fairly useful horse. So I thought at the prices, given he's about 8-1, I thought that was fair enough for a progressive type.
Yeah, good point. Well made. It seems that I think Super Survivor, it's been very clear that that's been the plan with the Welsh National. Maybe that's somewhat been the indicator of the price. I just said Gitmaker was overpriced and Super Survivor was underpriced myself. Jake, 2 Cromwell horses in here. He's obviously had a fantastic season raiding over to these British races. Did you fancy either of them?
I don't. I did have a good look at Yeah Man. Went back and watched his run where he fell at the last, and I don't think he was quite getting to Victorino. It was going to be a good run for probably second, I reckon. So he was on my list, but I agree with Dan. I think Chipmaker's got a great chance. I was actually looking at the confirmations on Monday morning, and the race cuts up massively. Like, I think about over half the field came out. All of the classier types of horses were among those horses that came out. And it's left it as quite a weak race really for a Premier handicap. But yeah, Jeepmaker's been he's come along slowly, really. He's been going up north, little races. He's been trying to get soft ground most of the time. But as Dan said, when he ran on good to soft last time out, he showed a good turn of pace really to see off Super Survivor. And yeah, I think he's got a great chance here. 8-1's a big price for him.
Yeah, two very strong cases for Jeepmaker. I think he'll run a very good race. Yeah, Man is a horse that will forever and not annoy me, but I can't quite get him right. He will turn up in one of these races, but I wouldn't be sure whether you'd be having the last 5 or before Christmas on him. The Betfair Exchange Handicap Hurdle is our chance to fill the coffers before Christmas, and I can speak candidly in terms of that I need my coffers filled. This is an interesting race, Jake, because we were obviously at the November meeting together. We saw these 2 JP Nicky Henderson horses both win. Obviously, different standard of races. The Berwick O'Lord very much won a better race in the Great Wood than Imposed Trois did, but Imposed Trois won with any amount in hand. Would you fancy either of them? Are you taking a chance on the Willie Mullins horse that decides to run out all the time? Where are you?
I did think that Iberico Lord's rise of only £8 was very lenient for that win. You know, he won as he liked, really, didn't he, in the end? Yeah, I probably would end up having a little saver on him, but my main play here that I've had a long-term view on is Altobelli. Obviously, me and Dan both spoke when we put up Knickerbocker Glory way back when about how Altobelli's main hope was to come here. He finished a good race, ran a good race in second that day. Stayed on well at the end. I think it was a really good performance. He's only put up £1 for that as well, which suggests that coming back here, considering this has been the plan the whole time, I think he's going to have a really, really good chance. Obviously, Jonathan Buck retains the ride. Tongue Tied is retained. And yeah, I think he's just a horse who's really progressive, got a good mark, and that's exactly what you need in a race like this.
Dan, do you agree? Is Altobelli, are you going to double up again with Jake here?
Yep, completely agree. I say we've had probably a long-term view on this for a while now, that it looked like coming into that race, Altobelli would just benefit from the experience. Obviously, still very raw, and that was, I think, his first handicap start as well. Looked like he'd improved for it, raced wide, raced out the back, which didn't suit. Came there with an effort. The only one really to get within shouting distance, Knickerbocker Glory. £1 rise for that, more than fair. Obviously, the third was bad, and he's come on to run really well behind Hansard next time out. So the form looks solid. And I say, if you read some Stable Tours and some of the Horse to Follow books, they've always had this race as the main aim for him. Yeah, and I think he's a reasonable enough price. And for all that, Iberico Lord was very impressive. Like, he's almost won his big handicap now. It would take another really good effort to back that up and do so under a rise in a very competitive race. So I think Altobelli's been primed for this. And yeah, he'd be my play for sure.
It seems like you two are in complete cahoots against me here. I'm going to you every race, and you're going to agree. And I'm there sitting, twiddling my thumbs, trying to make up a case for anything else. But no, I thought maybe Imposed Trois. I just felt the way he won that race, I think he still probably has that big handicap in him. Of the 2 Henderson horses, he'd be the one I'd actually side with at a slightly bigger price. But tough little race. Anything else at Ascot on Saturday for either of you guys? Obviously, a couple of decent handicaps at the start of the card that we haven't seen. A couple of 2 mile handicap chase, especially, being quite tricky. Dan, anything to get me a few quid?
I didn't know you had a few quid to spare.
I need.
I can vouch for that.
Much I need.
Unfortunately, nothing for me. I think Jake might be your man, but I think the rest of the card's quite difficult, to be honest.
Jake, it's come to you. I need coffers. There's Paul Nolan horses I need to be backing on Stephen's Day, and I need to have the money to do it.
Okay, well, I can't get you anything else at Ascot, but I've got a couple at Haydock, so that will have to do, I'm afraid. So in the 130
track as well, paying the paymaster.
So in the 130 is the Tommy Whittle handicap chase, and that is where I really fancy Famous Bridge. I mentioned in my case for him last time when he ran one over course and distance that I thought that the Roland Merrick at Wetherby would be his next port of call. He was entered for that, but obviously they've just decided to come here instead. It's a much weaker race, so it makes sense for them to do so. He was only put up £6 for that win. I think that he has loads more in hand, and I think he'll go in again.
Now it's time for the Stephen's Day or Boxing Day, whether you're Irish or English action. We're going to cover the Grade 1 at Aintree. We're going to cover a few of the Grade 1s at Kempton, and then a bit of any other business at the end. The form being Officers Hurdle, obviously previously the Tolworth. It's probably got a more, robust field in terms of, I think there's going to be a lot more runners in this race in the long term than it would have ever gotten at Sandown. From a ground perspective, probably a little bit easier for Irish horses as well. Django Bay tops the market at 3-1. Royal Bond winner Farron Glory's there at 5. Favour and Fortune at 6s. Camp Sinus, Tell Her the Name, Florida Dreams and Dan Overall's favourite horse in training, Look Away, who's been well backed actually, 14-1 this morning into 8-1 now. I know Josh and I discussed it last night when we were recording that 14-1 was a bit of an insult. 8-1 probably more around what he should be. Do you give him any chance in a Grade 1? And will it kill you if Neil King wins a Grade 1 with this horse when he was off 122?
How many times are they going to have to hear that? It's going to haunt me more than Cocoa Beach did back in the day.
Not enough, this. Not enough.
To be, I think part of the reason for the contraction is that he was also in the handicap at Ascot, wasn't he? And they've decided to go here instead. But to be fair, this has always been the plan from what they insisted. Then again, we know they don't always stick to plans, as we've seen. I actually do give him a chance here. I think he sets the standard on what he's actually achieved, in my opinion. Obviously, a lot of promising types, but I don't really think he should be a bigger price than Kempton, to be honest. I mean, he had a run under his belt when he finished second at Look Away. We know what Look Away will do. He'll be there in the vanguard all the way. I think it's likely to find one or two, maybe two good for him, but I think he'll run his race. I think it's a really strong-looking renewal. As you say, we wouldn't have had this at Sandown. It just would not have happened. So the likes of Django By, Tell Her the Name, obviously renewing rivalries. Farron Glory, if he wins this, then we really are in trouble because he is, although he's won a Grade 1, he's not a proper Grade 1 horse in my book. A really good race, probably one I wouldn't have a massive betting opinion on. I do think Look Away will go well from the front, and I just think maybe one or two will probably be a bit too good for him on the day.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair enough, Jake. Looking at the race yourself, I think the one thing as well, having it at Aintree, is you're going to have potentially a slightly better northern horse, a little bit like a Florida Dreams here. Like, I think we'd be joking ourselves in terms of Florida Dreams wouldn't have run in a Tolworth Hurdle at Sandown. But Nicky Richards, obviously it's the apple of his eye, and he's decided that he's going to run him in this race. I thought he might have a squeak. I know he's been underwhelming in his two hurdling runs. This seems to have been the plan. Look Away, obviously a horse close to my heart as well. Where did you go?
Yeah, well, I do think it's interesting that Gordon sends across Farron Glory. I think it kind of reminds me of when Willie sent across Hibrisco at Cheltenham last November, where it's just like testing the waters to see what's going on. I know obviously he's won a Grade 1, but I think it really is Gordon testing the British waters here. However, I do think the race revolves around Django Bay and Tell Her the Name in that piece of Ascot form. I went back and watched it back earlier today, and I think Django Bay just really did outstay Tell Her the Name. Tell Her the Name hit the front, and then Django Bay obviously just managed to battle back at the line, and that was on soft ground. And I was going to make the reverse argument where if this was on better ground, that Tell Her the Name would reverse that form and reverse it nicely. But obviously it is soft still at Aintree. So the only thing you've really got going in your favour is Tell Her the Name has had the run, will be a bit more professional. But for me, it'd be between the two. I'll see what the ground does. If it does dry up, then I will be all over Tell Her the Name. If it stays soft or gets worse, then Django Bay has obviously got a really good chance based on that form.
Yeah, good race, though. The Form Be Novices, really interesting to see the first, obviously, edition of it at Aintree. Moving over to Kempton, the Quarter Star Novices Chase, another very tricky Grade 1, a good Grade 1 in terms of these are good betting heats. Ile Francais, the favourite at 5-2. Hermes Alens, 11-4. Giovinco's 3s. Classical Dreams is 3s. I think Grange Clare West is next in at 7s. I assume one of Willie's will run. I don't know which one exactly. I'm hoping that one of you two is as much of a racing buff that you're going to actually tell me what Ile Francais has actually achieved, because it seems to be a tall reputation. But every time I'm seeing it recently, there's a tall reputation of these French horses, and they're going and getting run over. So you told me this Milantino could not be beat under any circumstance. And to be honest, I think Paul Nolan might have a horse better than him. So
steady.
Is he good enough to win the Quarter Star, Jake?
In short, I don't really know, but I did watch his last run live, and he just made all the running without having to do anything. And it was the same on his first start, where he was in second for the first flight, and then after that, he just made all the running afterwards. So realistically, I don't think anyone really knows exactly what he's achieved. And something very interesting about that Oi Toy run is there's like a cheese wedge banks at Oi Toy that I never even realized existed until I watched that race. And he went over that. So what that means in terms of going around Kempton instead of Oi Toy, then God knows. But for me, it's going to be whoever Willie sends. I'm going to be backing here. I think Classical Dream he looks awesome, didn't he, on his debut over fences? That was a really good performance. If he comes here, yeah, I'd be all over him. And then Grange West, obviously, he's a bigger price, but if he did come here again, I really liked his debut over fences. He beat some good horses there. Obviously, Colbert's Cross has come out and won since. Obviously, the thing with Grange West is that we've always wanted to see him back it up. This will be his chance to do so. We'll see if he actually does that, if he does come here. But I just really would hope that one of those two horses would be better than the English lot. Do respect Giovinco. I think this is his track and type of trip. But yeah, it would be one of the Willie pair for me, whoever gets declared.
Yeah, very interesting. Dan, if I was looking at this Kauto Star, if they were to tell me now the Classical Dream is going to be entered, I'd near on make him one of the best bets of the entire Christmas period.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm warming to that idea as well. I honestly initially didn't think he would run. I just thought it was maybe a speculative entry, but I mean, the market's maybe suggesting he is gonna. I don't think I'd have Grange Clare West here if it's gonna be one of them. It would definitely be Classical Dream. It just looks ideal for him, really. Like a sharp right-handed 3 miles. We know that's what he thrives over. Incredibly impressive on his chasing debut. We know he's got plenty of back class as well from his days as Supreme winner, obviously staying hurdler as well under pretty much these conditions as well. Yeah, I think there's a very good potential he could just be above and beyond these. Obviously, Ile Francais is just almost impossible to quantify, really. Like, I'm almost borderline giving up now on quantifying these French horses coming over after Milantino Gate. And I think that's probably for the best for my sanity. Giovinco, I think he's probably an Aintree type, I think, down the line. I think that's maybe where we'll see the best of him. But if Classical Dream does run, yeah, I'd definitely have him. I'd say he should probably be favourite as well if he runs. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few days how these Willie Mullins horses eventually play out.
Yeah, talking about Milantino again, Dan, how many kind of harmless people did you have your arm around the shoulder of the Friday night of the November meeting, telling them that we were about to witness something special?
Yeah, I formally apologise to those people. To be fair, you should know better. If I come up to you and start talking about a horse, he's probably going to be crap. So pity you as well.
They learned the hard way there.
They did, and if they haven't learned by now, there's no helping them.
He's still on the Boodles list. It's fine.
Oh, jeez. I'm still haunted by that race from last year. Let's not go there again.
Yeah, I'm sure Jake hasn't. He usually calls the Boodles to a T. Christmas Hurdle, Constitution. This is an absolutely dross race apart from Constitution Hill. I would assume he wins and Roubaud probably finish second, Jake?
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, hopefully we can actually enjoy it.
And Dan, I assume, no different opinion to that?
Yeah, nice little break from the competitive stuff to watch a good performance, and then we move on. Might have a beer about this time.
I think that would be very, very necessary. Well, we now move on to the highlight, really, of the card at Kempton, and one of the big highlights of the festive period, the King George. I've seen a couple of tweets, Jake, from a few people that will not be named, saying that this King George is not very good and not very impressive. And I don't know what people are looking for these days. It's a competitive race with Grade 1 horses in it. You've got one horse that didn't start the last day. You've got a horse returning from a big absence. You've got last year's winner. What more do people want?
Well, that could be a number of things, couldn't it? But anyway, I think that Allaho coming back here is very, very interesting. Obviously, he's been well found in the market. I'm just fascinated to see how he runs, to be honest. I don't think it's really a betting race for me. I know Dan's going to make a case of one in a minute, but for me, I'm just looking at it. You know, Jerry Cologne's probably going to come out. It's a bit of a shame. Would have been nice to see him up against these lot. Braveman's game, I couldn't back him after his last 2 starts, to be honest. Shishkin, obviously, you're getting a decent price about him. I don't know if he's a real proper 3-mile Grade 1 horse against, especially, you know, as you said, some Grade 1 horses here. So yeah, I know Allaho's the one for me. Obviously, when he came back and made his reappearance, he just did what he had to do, made all the running. The horses never got anywhere near him. I think it was just exactly how it was supposed to go for him. Be very interesting to see how he's come out of that. Obviously, a 47-day break. You know, this will probably be his one run. The last time he ran over 3 miles at Punchestown, he was absolutely awesome when we were up in Cyprus, I think, watching that one, weren't we? And that was a really, really good performance. So if he can put something similar in here, I think he'll win. And yeah, I'm just fascinated by him coming across.
Yeah, I think it adds an awful lot to the race, Dan. There's probably going to be 7 runners. Jerry Calam has been declared, and kind of they've said that the Savills Chase is now the option, which obviously for some each way punters is probably a bit of a blow, considering I know that you were perhaps fancying one at one of the one of the flashier prices.
Yeah, well, I'd say with that now pretty much confirmed, now's the time to get your 3 places. I think maybe some on the day will offer 3 places anyway. Obviously, it is a feature race. I think they might be generous in that regards. But you just look through this race, and I don't know what people are necessarily saying, but you can't say anything. But this is really interesting because I think you can poke holes in pretty much everything in this race to a certain extent. We only learned that Allaho was alive last time out. We didn't learn anything else. The Allaho of old will win this quite comfortably, but is he at 9 pushing 10 after injury? I think it would not be my kind of bet at 7 to 4, and he'll probably even get shorter, I'd say. Braveman's game, he'll probably do it again and decide, oh, I actually do like finding off the bridle in the King George, but he never does it anywhere else, it seems. Shishkin couldn't touch him with a barge pole. Why the real whack is a single price, I'm not really sure after last time out. And then I got down to Hewick and just thought he was far too big. Like, he was running an absolute career best in that Gold Cup. And whatever you say about the Gold Cup and what's come out after it, that race at the time was proper. All the right height, all the right horses in the right place. He was still bang there 2 out. Would have probably finished 5th, but he made pretty much most of the running after a faller. Soft ground wouldn't have been in his favour. I think going back right-handed, 3 miles, good ground is ideal. There's plenty of pace on here. He could be one of them, but he's going to be absolutely assured to be one of the strongest stayers. And we know he goes exceedingly well fresh, like he was running in the Gold Cup fresh. I think there's an awful lot to like about him as an each-way option. I think he's the only betting angle I could see into the race. Obviously, I think I did back him early in the week. I think he's still about 16 to 1. I think 16 to 1 3 places is still more than fair.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It just feels like you wouldn't be surprised if Allaho won the race by 10 lengths. You wouldn't be surprised if Allaho pulls up halfway down the back. And there's probably a couple of these that fall into that bracket. I just have come round to the conclusion that if Paul Nicholls is going to get one more win out of Braveman's game almost in his entire career, it will be this race. He'll want to make such a point, considering probably hasn't campaigned the horse to his best ability this year. Don't think he should have ran in the Betfair Chase. He ran a pretty average race. I think just round Kempton, he still is a horse to be very much a danger. I can understand why people would poke holes in him, though, of course, he's been beaten twice now. He's been beaten 4 times in a row since winning the King George last year, but there's been some fantastic efforts at Kempton there. So I'm going to just about side with him. Jake, coming back to yourself, there's heaps of racing. I think there's 9 cards between the UK and Ireland between Stephen's Day. There's around 70 odd races, so there's no real excuses to not have anything else for me on Stephen's Day.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, there's nothing else from me. No.
Imagine.
That is shrewd level answer I've ever seen.
I'm joking. Of course I've got more. It's just at this stage, it's really hard because so many horses are double entered. I've got so many horses in my tracker that I don't even know what to look at first. So obviously after entries, there'll be a lot more bets that transpire. But at this stage, the few that are on my radar, the 250 at Aintree, Harbour Lake. Hopefully we'll be making his chase debut. He's been entered up a few times. Finally, we should be able to do that this time. I thought his form at Aintree at the end of last season, where he's staying on really strongly, looks really good. He looks like the proper chasing type, and yeah, he'd be one on my list. The 313 at Wincanton is the Temps qualifier, and Lord Snooty's entered up here. Obviously he ran really off 6th behind Slate Lane. I think that they're going to want to win if it's a horse that's good enough to go for a attempt, he's going to have to win. He's up 1-2-2 at the minute. I think that he ran on really well in that Haydock race. He just wasn't as good as the horses in front of him. So in a much weaker race, he's got no chance.
Can I ask an honest question though? We're here on the 21st of December. What on earth has made you look at the 313 at Wincanton at this stage?
No, you've
got to flick through a tracker, and you've got to find the races where you've only got one horse just to have a look through.
You're far too sharp for me. See, this is why I need Josh. Me and him are too dense to be looking at Wincanton 5.
The last one was in the last at Kempton, the 340, and Email Andy is in here off an opening mark of 127. I just thought his form at Newbury the last day was really, really good. And yeah, looks like a decent handicap mark. Grey Dawning was very, very similar to last year. He won the race. Obviously, ended up going off 5-4 favourite. I think Email Andy probably will end up being quite short, but he'll have a great chance for Cobden and Nichols.
And Dan, I'm assuming you will have equally bizarre, equally obscure horses in random races around the country. And I'm hoping to goodness you've taken a leaf out of my book and seen that there is at least one Paul Nolan winner at Down Royal ready for us.
Well, on the first point, yes. On the second point, absolutely not. So I'll leave those to the specialists or the people who like losing money.
Thereof.
Yeah. So, right, these are my early notes. As I went through the Boxing Day cards yesterday, my first skim through. So the first horse was Borrowdale. He's ended in 2 places, the 1 o'clock at Wetherby and the 3:32 at Market Raisin. Opt-in trip on both of those. He's off 105 on his handicap debut. Bred to stay, fought well off for a long time. He'll be interesting on handicap debut up in trip. Then let's go down. 3:13 at Wincanton, Gosh How Posh, instead of Lord Snooty, running very well in that big race.
On that race as well.
Yes, yeah, I know, it's sickening, isn't it? And we've got different horses in it. We need help.
Yeah.
We're dutching in the 3:13 at Wincanton on boxing.
quality television we're watching there.
Yeah, we need. Although this next one's even better. The 3:27 at Fontwell.
Oh no, no.
High stakes. Put a line through last season. He hated chasing. Ran really well at Cheltenham, I thought, from the front on his reappearance over hurdles. Had decent back form. Now back at a track he knows and runs well at, off 117. He's handicapped to win a race finally. The 2:57 at Market Raisin, the Lincolnshire National, O'Connell, Pursue Smith, hacked up on over course and distance. Well, just short of course and distance. Yards absolutely flying. He had previously chased Omar Harry Derham debutant on it beforehand. He's by Westerner, by Dam, who's from a proper staying chaser family. He should be even better going up in trip. And then Asta La Pasta in a couple of races at Market Raisin again. I think he is still handicapped to win a race, looks to be learning. And then finally, the one who stands out to me the most of all of them, the first race at Aintree, Cherry Darm for the Skeltons off 115, looks absolutely thrown into me. Cannot understand why she's rated 115. Really well regarded, won a point, won a bumper. Thought she could be Mayor's Novice Hurdle standard after making a hurdling debut and won that very cosily. Then given far too much to do next time out over a sharp track. Finished second to Push the Button, who's rated 132. Jockey's claim taken into account. She was only getting £1 off him that day, and he made all. The third was Yesterday, who ran well in the Albert Bartlett trial the other day, finishing 5th. They pulled miles clear of the rest. Back in Mayor's company in a 0 to 120. A track will suit. And if she can't win that off 115, then I will. I was going to say I'll quit, but the chances are she doesn't win, so I can't say that. I will be flabbergasted. And also, my day will be ruined because it's basically the first race of the day.
It'll be a long day, yeah.
It will be, yeah.
Races still to go.
I'm looking forward to the 3:13 at Wincanton so I can get my money back, or maybe the Fontwell at 3:27.
People will know from me that I've been trying to learn and improve this season, and it hasn't worked. I've gone straight back to base, and I'm going to go straight back to base for 2 on Stephen say that I'm very, very confident in. The opening maiden hurdle at Down Royal, 2.5 mile maiden hurdle, horse called Maxi Mac Gold, goes up in trip, which he's been crying out for. He's ran 2 very nice races in 2 mile maiden hurdles around Cork, staying on at the line, needs a step up in trip. Yard has won this race before a couple of times, which is good. And the novice handicap hurdle at Leopardstown over 2 miles. I'm going to Dutch 2 in this race because I think between the 2 of them, I just don't see how it can go wrong in my head. It will go.
See, someone clip that.
I don't see how it can, but it will. One of them being Park of Kings. Park of Kings has got 4 entries over Christmas. He's off 111. When I was at the yard back in November time, they thought he was a 125, 130 horse. He needs a little bit of nicer ground, which means I think he'll run at Leopardstown. I don't know whether he'll run in this race with a 2.5 mile novice handicap on the 29th. Whichever one he runs in, I think he'll go very well. And I'm going to go back to the well. I like inflicting previous pain on myself, and I'm going to do that in this novice handicap hurdle because Belgo Prince is off a mark of 97 over hurdle. He's 80 on the flat, and I can't I don't think he'd have beaten Imposed Twa at Cheltenham, but he would have come 2nd or 3rd. And that horse is running obviously in the big handicap at Ascot on the weekend and has a chance in it. And this horse is off 97. Tony Martin's record in the race is off the charts. bar 1 year in the last 9, he hasn't had a horse in the first 3. So he targets the race. This horse has been second in the race before. I think he's got a huge chance. So Park of Kings and Belgo Prince, if any of them run in the novice handicap hurdle, I would fancy them. The rest of Christmas, there's obviously heaps going on. There's Weatherby's, there's Chepstows, Welsh Nationals, there's more at Kempton, more at Leopardstown, more at Limerick. Absolutely heaps. Jake, try and condense, but also give us as many winners as possible.
Do you know what? I'm going to keep it simple and only go for one. There's too many entries for me to go for at the minute. There'll be a lot more, don't worry, but I'll be up on Twitter and stuff like that. But the horse that I did really like in the Jack de Bromhead Christmas Hurdle is Irish Point. I assume this is where he's going to run his first start over 3 miles. I just think that he's got an unbelievable chance here. I think he's the most progressive horse in the field. Won really well at Down Royal, and yeah, stepping up to 3 miles is hopefully going to be the making of him. So yeah, Irish Point would be the one for me. But there'll be plenty more to come, that's for sure.
Dan, what about yourself?
Oh, so we're off to the 317 Fakenham. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you again.
That would be the last straw.
That camel's back is straining. I can't really put any more weight on it before it goes. I'll give you 3. Autonomous Cloud in the Welsh National. I've been harping on about this one for a while. I think he ticks pretty much every box. 7-year-old, lightly raced. Very good jumper. Will stay all day, and it's been the plan for a long, long time. I think he's got a very good chance in a race that's cutting up quite a lot. In the Future Champions Novice Hurdle, I think Daddy Longlegs at 7-2, I think, is a very good bet, assuming he's the one that goes. The market would suggest he is. I don't really see why Elliot's horse down memory lane should be as short as he is at about 5-4. I think compared to what they've done on debut, I'd have Daddy Longlegs actually ahead of him. So I'll back him at 7-2, 4-1, and hope he actually runs. He's sort of it's for me. And then in the 2-mile 1 race that Captain Guinness runs in, the Paddy Rewards Club Chase, I will take on Captain Guinness with basically whatever runs, because I do not want to live in a world where he wins a Grade 1, to be honest. He's had 9 chances already and blown it every single time. He blew up in this race last year as well. I think if Appreciate It does run, I think he could go very well here, assuming positive tactics again, which saw him really effective. And to be fair, I mean, now you look back at that Irish Arkle, we didn't really do that much wrong, chasing a very strong pace that day in what turned out to be a good race. I think he could make all here quite easily if he does run. Obviously, he does have other options, but if Appreciate It does run, I will back him to beat Captain Guinness.
Well, it is the blind leading the blind leading the blind. Because I have 2 bets for the rest of Christmas, and one of them is appreciated in the 2-mile Grade 1 at Leopardstown. So God help the horse. It has 17 stone on its back now. I'm
just going to take this and maybe just throw that away. It's the same thing.
You can set it on fire. You can put it in the bin. I'm with you, though. I just don't. I think Captain Guinness has had every chance in his life to win a Grade 1. I understand this is probably as weak a Grade 1 as he's going to face, but he just finds ways of getting beat in these races. It's as if he hears the words Grade 1 and he suddenly goes, something in the stomach. I think if Appreciated, as long as they don't do anything stupid and don't start holding up again like last year, which is a chaos, I think he will have a very good chance. 7-1. And the other one is in the 3-mile Grade 1 novice chase at Leopardstown. I'm really hoping I can land a double between Classical Dream winning the Quarto Star and Flooring Porter winning this race. I'm actually really strong on Flooring Porter for this. I just think Leopardstown, they really want him to run well. If you look at that Cheltenham form, obviously through Broadway Boys, it's been nothing but advertised. I thought he actually ran a cracker in the Florida Pearl, considering he was in the car park. He should have very easily come second. If not, I think he'll be able to turn form around with Favre de Champdou on slightly better ground and at a left-handed track. And I think at 3-1, he would be up there as one of my bets of the entire festive period. But gents, it's been absolutely superb. Thanks again for having me on, Jake and Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been emotional, my friend. Thank you for hopping on and taking the hot seat, because Bully decides to go on holiday every 5 minutes. I think he's currently residing in some kind of ancient castle by the looks of it.
Yeah.
As only Bully could. It's typical Bully form, this.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. It's obviously a very cushy job, the presenting job at Racing TV, because he's left on the 14th of December. I haven't seen him all December. But no, he will be back with you guys next week. As I say, thanks for having me on. As I said at the start of the video, if you're going to do anything for me, if you have anything, if you want to give me a Christmas present, like this video, subscribe to the Jump Show down below. Looking for 150 likes on this Christmas special. So fingers crossed we can hit that. And of course, leave your best bet of the weekend down below in the comments. I'm doing everything you've told me to do, Jake. Best bets in the comments. Like
well, I'm just thinking, if we do get this 150 like goal, then perhaps we'll start the Ante-Post series for Cheltenham. How about that?
If that is no incentive to get a few Dan Overall non-runners into your book, then you should be liking this video right now. And hopefully you all have a lovely Christmas, a lovely New Year period as well, and it's fantastic racing, fantastic festive stuff, and really enjoy it. And of course, bet responsibly as well. Best of luck, and hopefully see you guys soon.